Hell the heck with it. We're up and running. Hey, listen, you guys. I'm glad you're here. Glad to see a few of you making it. What we're going to be doing today, I was saying earlier that, thanks, Chad. I feel sort of intimidated. Does my background move a lot this way? Because originally when I talked to Tom, this was about Family Day with kids. And, we teach a class at the YMCA called Cartooniverse, which is to help kids who want to cartoon learn to draw in different ways, in creative ways. And I want to kind of integrate that a little bit with what we're doing here. So we'll do a caricature that I've got in mind today. We're going to cross mediums a little bit. Since, like I said, I'm at the end of the party chain, everybody's covered all the wonderful things like shapes and how to use simple shapes in drawing. So I'm just going to keep approaching it from that way. You guys that have been doing this a while, none of this is going to be new to you. This is more for some of the folks who, young ones who are just getting started, who are learning how to do what we do and do it in a great way. My office is where I'd kind of like to start. To those of you who are just getting started, when you work in a studio, hey Robin, and David, to those of you who work in a studio, you know that it is one of the most important places for you to be creative and to be inspired. And so mine has sort of become a runaway toy factory in where my wife, Patty, and I do a lot of our business. And so I like to be inspired, and a lot of my inspirations are toys. So I'm going to show you a little bit around my office, my studio, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to do some drawing together and do some things. Sorry, you guys that have been doing this for a while, you're not going to learn anything new in this one. You'll learn more about me than anything else, and I don't know how many of you want to know that. Hey, Mel, good to see you, buddy. All right, well, here, I'm going to flip the camera around a little bit and let you look around, okay? Cece said hi, Patty.
Hi.
All right, flipping the camera so you can see my office. Where shall we begin? Hold on, I'm going to stand up. I can do that, you know. I'm going to stand up and flip the camera around. All right, here we go. This is the doorway to my office, the mental ward. And around here, yes, around here we have buku numbers of pops. What's the good of a toy if it stays in a box? I think they're more of a decoration than anything else. I started with one or two that I thought was cool, and Patty sort of jumped in, and here we are. So we have lots of those. And this is my drawing zone, my Cintiq that I draw on most of the time for my digital work. Hi, Bill. We really, I do more studio work now. I've been doing more studio work. Hey, Steve, I built those myself. We do a lot more studio work than we have, and recently we're doing a ton more. So there's my no swimming hazardous area that my buddy in the UK did for me. We've been chatting back and forth a little bit. Hope he's on here today. I'll say hello. Hey, Eric. This is my toy shelf. Hey, I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old grandson, and they just walk in here and look around and grab stuff without my knowledge. I have to put the important ones away. I didn't leave any of the dirty stuff out, did I? No, I didn't. All right, here we go. My buddy Chris Moore drew that when he was working down in Florida. Told him I loved it, and he gave it to me. And my buddy Chad Engel gave me that at a gig or at a convention we were at. And of course, this is by Tom Richmond, who I attended his class last year, and we had a chance to. I guessed that the DeLorean has to go up to 88 miles an hour. So here we are. We're done with this. I'm going to flip back around, and you guys have to look at me for a minute. Hello. I will turn this around to the drawing board in here in just a second. I'll give you guys the idea of my agenda, what we've got in front of us. And let me see if I can put that there. And pray I can flip this thing around. Patty, see if you can find that on there. I'm going to flip the camera back around so you can see it. And I'll just talk. You won't have to look at me. Thank you. That's such a good problem. All right, here's our agenda for today. No, flip back around. Here's our agenda for today. We are going to have, you've got to know a little bit about me. I will say that I've been doing caricatures for a little over 30 years. Those first few years, I was doing it part-time, sort of on the side. I really didn't see it as a viable income. It was a nice filler. I'm sure a lot of us start out that way. But for now, things have turned around. And so the last 15 years, we've been full-time. Patty jumped on board and took over. And I will have to tell you that if you guys don't have a manager of some sort, you really should. For me to be able just to do artwork and Patty does all the business, that's a really good way to go. Hi, Steve. For the newbies, we're going to talk a little bit about warming up, and then we'll talk a little bit about your space, where you are. From there, we'll go on to more stuff about what you draw with. Some people prefer a pencil. Some people automatically like drawing with a pen. And then we'll talk about draw a rock, and then we'll draw a rock on a tablet. I'll show you how I go from rough sketches onto my iPad, and then we'll work a little bit in Procreate and wrap up there. So, before we get started, let's hit play and have a little bit of music in the background. If it's too loud, just say so. If you don't like it, tough. All right, I'll turn it down just a skosh. Originally, when I got started working with kids in school at the YMCA, we did a class called Cartooniverse. And Cartooniverse was designed to help kids who like to cartoon sort of have a direction to go. I've taught classes in the past, and the problem sometimes with teaching is you lose a direction. You sort of are all over the board. So what we decided to do with the kids was we decided to give them opportunities to draw different things, and they couldn't choose them right off the bat. They could choose items and things that would initiate their imaginations to cut loose. And so initially, what we would do is we would go into the class and introduce ourselves, and then we would, let me turn my light on, and then we would, to get the class going, we would say, what we're going to do is create a planet, you guys. Everybody's going to get a chance to create a planet. The planet would have to be something random, so we would put random things in a bag or something. And can you see it at all? All right. We would have a bag of different things in it. You'd have a list of like paper or popcorn or ice cream or water or things like that. We would have the kids draw it out at random, so we didn't have anything planned. And then from that point forward, their planet in Cartooniverse would be made of that item. So just to give you some ideas in the past. Now remember, the kids picked the item out, and we let them create the name of the planet. Sometimes the planet names are not all that creative, but this is just the way they would go. Once they got a planet, then they would have to come up with creatures and vehicles and buildings and things like that to put on their planet. So this was paper was the thing that they picked out, and so they came up with the name Pennsylvania. This was a carrot somebody drew out. Can you look up there and see those? At one point we had ice cream. This was chocolate, popcorn, a cookie, water, Jell-O, cheese, pizza, and wood. These are the different classes we've done over the years. Each class had to definitively create their planet. They had to create characters for their planet like an ambassador. They had to create vehicles and houses and all kinds of fun stuff. And so this was an idea, a vehicle to get them thinking. We would introduce the basics of cartooning at that point, covering things like shapes and growing from that. And so trying to get their minds to go down a road. Now this, like I said, for you guys, we've been doing this for a while. It's not all that creative, but when you're dealing with kids, you got to get them to think. And creativity is something that is learned, and it's grown inside as you grow. It's not something you have automatically. And so I tell them things like this. When we all start out drawing, they'll say, I can't draw very good. I'm not a very good artist. And I'll say, you know what? We all start off like that. We all start off not being able to draw. And at one point, you have to decide that you're going to invest time, that you're going to build on that. And the discouragement in kids is they can't meet that objective. They're like, oh, I'm so frustrated. I can't draw as well as you, and I want to quit. And I tell them, you know, people that start off like that, one day they get like this. Yeah, that's my actual picture by the way. I leave my shirt on not to intimidate people. Thanks, honey. I leave my shirt on to make people feel less intimidated. But the idea being that you don't get to here without starting here, and you do that by investing time. My biggest, not a frustration, but I let people come up and say, God has blessed you with this wonderful talent. And I will tell people, and not to discourage them about God at all, but to say that God has given me the opportunity, and He gives me the vision to have, to grow, and that over time allows me to develop and become a better artist. So let's talk to kids right now. Let's cover a little bit. For those of you getting started, what we'll do in our class, and believe me, this is one of the biggest frustrations with the kids in our class, is when we draw, I'll tell them, I'll ask them what shape is common in almost everything you draw. Of course, I got some argumentative answers, but initially the question became, what do we draw normally the most? And I would tell them that we start with a circle. Circles are the biggest, most creative tool we draw. We draw them anywhere from this size to this size. I love to watch a caricature artist when he's drawing. He's laying out the map of his page, and he'll do this. He won't draw anything. He'll just run his arm over to get the picture in his mind where he wants to draw, and then he lays the pencil down and begins to draw. So we tell the kids, and we won't do this here because one, we don't have the time, and two, I don't need you being angry or sending hate mail, is we'll tell them to start drawing with a pencil or pen, mostly a pencil we tell them, and start drawing circles. And we'll do it first in a counterclockwise fashion. And they'll do this for literally, the first day is a minute, the second day is 2 minutes, third day is 3, last day is 5. And by the end of 5 minutes, these kids are like, I can't do this anymore. And so then they really get frustrated when I tell them now they've got to do the opposite direction and draw counterclockwise. Now, even those of us that have been doing this a while, we've done it so long that jumping to this back to the beginning isn't really where we are. And I will say that I don't practice this every day, but I will say there are times when I want to get my circles down, I want to get my shapes down.
Hi,
and,
Tyler.
And, sorry?
Tyler Jones and Bob Easter joined.
Hey, Bob, what's going on, buddy? What's up, Tyler? Anyway, drawing circles is where it all begins. It does begin. And think about it, you guys. Everything we draw is circular, ovular. We begin, you have the eyes, you have the centers of the eyes, you have the heads, you have the nose, the sides of the nose. You know, you have all kinds of circles in your drawings. So when you start drawing, learning how to do that fairly fluidly is important. Once you've got that down, once you've wasted a piece of paper, and I would encourage kids not to throw it away when they're done, but to come back later and just keep drawing over it. They want to practice different sizes, by the way, not always that size. But we get them to do this for a while. I'm not a very popular teacher by the end of the week, but we have lots of circles on paper. point being that we use circles in everything we do. I heard a lot of people cover shapes this week. Eric did a great job talking about shapes and how we use them in caricature and drawing. And those are always where we want to start. We want to start with basic shapes. And I'm not turning that away.
Bob says he's just here to heckle you.
You can heckle away, buddy. I can't see it. Patty's got to read it to me.
And Diane just said hi. Or is watching.
All right. Oh, well, hi, Diane. Thanks for watching. Anyway, we do a lot with shapes. We do rectangles, we do triangles, we do trapezoids, we do all kinds of things. But essentially, it begins with this. It does. And some people don't realize, but your hand naturally curves this direction. My blueprint teacher in school talked about us, the way our hands curve and the way we do that naturally. So a lot of times you'll see artists who will draw and they will match that ability by turning. It's almost a very natural state. And the more you become fluid about that, the better your artwork becomes. It becomes more natural. It's not forced. To sit down and try to get kids not to do this, or they think sketching is this, when I'm telling them sketch like this. It's all about where we start. So remember that wonderful picture of beginning where you are. You're in that sort of wimpish stage. And so that's what we do. We talk about shapes and practice and warming up. So that's in a cartooning class. And those are just the basics of warming up. The next thing we'll cover, we like to cover, is looking at things in a room. Paige talked about this yesterday, where you looked at things in the room and you would apply those shapes to a cartoon or drawing. Those shapes can be anything. I've got a tape dispenser in my room that really makes me think of a horse. And so I'll begin with that. Sometimes I'll use it. And I will tell you this, whoever you are, and a lot of you know this, but some of you don't, we don't challenge ourselves enough. We draw what's easy, what comes easily to us. And so the arbitrary way of creating those planets that we talked about is a great way to challenge yourself. Some of us get way beyond that as years go on. But in the beginning, if you make yourself do that challenge, you can find ways of beating what bothers you and get you down to what you like to do. So that's where I begin. We begin with shapes, and we begin with doing things at a arbitrary but intentional pace. So, all right. Well, here's what we're going to do. Since we're here, I want to jump right into going to an object. I drew arbitrarily. I drew a rock out of my arbitrary bag, and so we're going to draw a rock today. We're going to draw Dwayne Johnson, and Dwayne is a favorite of mine. I didn't used to like wrestling that much, and I really wasn't a rock fan, but I will tell you that Dwayne Johnson is definitely a character who invokes a smile now and again, and he's not a terrible actor at all. I sort of pre-drew this a little bit just to keep on track, but I want to show you where we're going to start shape-wise. So those of you who are drawing along, we're going to start by drawing a trapezoid, and it's going to be like this. Trapezoid has 4 sides, but they're all uneven. So we're going to draw this. I don't know if you can see it. Let me know if you can't. I'll darken them. I guess I could show you my resource picture. Something I got online and found for Dwayne. This one right here is the one. Can you see it?
Yeah. Now they can see it.
Now they can see it. This is the rock. This is the picture that I chose. It sort of covers his old look here and his new look without the hair. Which, by the way, being a man without hair, I truly admire that aspect of him. So anyway, the shape we started with is trapezoid. It's just an unusual object.
Shane Manahan just joined.
And we drew it kind of like a mountain. I don't know how out of kilter this is, but I just started with a basic shape because if you look here on this, This is where I'm going with it. Finding the center of your face, a lot of times when you'll do this, I will try to keep things in line by drawing through.
Alfred is watching.
Hey Alfred, thanks for joining us. Hey you guys, am I boring you senseless yet? I'm not trying to. What we're going to do is once we get this rough sketch drawn, I'm going to show you how I personally go from a rough sketch stage, getting it into my iPad, and using Procreate to draw it out, and we'll do some color and things like that.
Fixed it.
Thanks, Ed. She's the best. All right, so what you love best about the rock is this eyebrow. You know, I love that eyebrow. It really is a great shape to start with. And so what I like to do, and this is probably a little more finished than people get in the middle of their drawing, but I will start with that. Some people start with the nose. I like this curve. I like the way this eyebrow goes. It starts here and goes like this. Can they still see that? Mm-hmm. All right then.
Yep.
All right. So I drew the eyebrow first because I want to get a feel for the fun of this. And his head has this nice shape to it. So I'm going to follow up here. And do this. Mind you, this is a rough sketch, you guys. Those of you just starting, drawing very lightly is the way to do it. I have pre-drawn this a little bit very lightly after I worked it through. But that's where you want to be. You want to draw lightly, and you don't want to go back and erase. Erasing isn't important at this point. You want to work out your lines, and so erasing is, in my mind, it's just sort of a waste. It's a ton of rubber out of the way, and it makes a terrible mess. I'll take this line all the way down here because he's got a very thick neck right here, and goes up.
The people's eyebrow, Chad.
And then this here is where his eyebrow goes in, or the brow line of his forehead. And then the cheek comes out. So I draw this around here. Now, I will tell you that not everybody, not every picture you see is caricature worthy. People will avoid some pictures because they don't. The picture just isn't what you want to try to draw. This is perfect for what I wanted. I went out looking. God love the internet. You guys who are 10 years old and younger, you have no idea what the world was like to find pictures before YouTube and the internet. So, all right, well, his jaw and his ears here, I draw his jawline out like this. Another curve. Remember we talked about circles? Well, here's a curve right here. This is a curve of a bigger circle. This is another circle. Constantly using curves. So here's his jaw. Goes out nice and strong. He's got a good jawline. Now remember, in caricatures you want to exaggerate. I want to take a moment to talk to you guys a bit about that inner dialogue you have. I was at a caricature 101 once with Paul Gaunt. And he was talking about using your inner dialogue. And some people, it's a natural, normal thing, but some people don't think about it. Sometimes you have to remind yourself while you're drawing, what you're going to do next. And I will catch myself saying to myself, this needs to be a nice swooping curve. And I'll reiterate it to myself when I find myself getting stuck in this. So, nice swooping curve. So use that inner dialogue when you've got it. His brow has a nice indentation up here, and it goes to a really long nose, longer than I first imagined. So I start here and I'll run the nose down like this.
Lots of love from Chad.
You have to tell me when they're being mean to me, 'cause I don't know.
So far, no meanies.
Fall asleep maybe.
Scott Hamilton is watching.
And then his chin sticks out, so we want to find a way to sort of bring that out. Using lots of curves here. Now this curved line that I did down the center is a great way to round off the neck right here. So I'll use that for this particular drawing. I have to admit, this drawing is fairly easy to draw from. Some of them aren't. But I like this one. I like Dwayne, and I'm going to draw Dwayne, and sorry if you don't like it. His nose. Oh, look.
Scott says good afternoon.
Hey, Scott. What's going on, buddy? We don't ever get to talk, you and I. Used to talk to you when I first got on Facebook. Look, another circle.
All about the circle.
And the propensity to final draw while I'm drawing is difficult because I start to finalize it while I'm still in the rough stage, and it's difficult. And I'll tell you something else, when you're drawing caricatures.
Joan says you're a great teacher.
Really, because I feel like I'm bored.
And Nolan is watching.
I will tell you that when you draw a mouth, or anything else actually, Nolan Harris has been a huge influence on me in that to look at a mouth and to add character to it is important. And so I could literally draw his mouth the way I see it, and that would be it. I decided to be a little more loopy about it. This is part of my process. And then we'll draw the lip. See the flume here? And then he's got a nice full lower lip. I don't know if you notice, some people just don't have full lower lips. And then the upper lip isn't as exaggerated on him, but I want it to stand out a little bit because I want to show the attitude that he's kind of got on his face. Now his upper lip overextends below his lower lip, so I'm going to bring it out here. All right, now I'm going to draw the eye. The eye is a circle. Oh no, look, another circle. And what's great about his eye, if you look at it, you see the eye, most of it. Some people, especially the older we get, we lose this lid. And some people's eyelids are very pronounced. And so his is very pronounced, and it's essential for the attitude on his face. Because notice his eye falls at mid-lid, or his eyeball is at midpoint on the, a little over midpoint on the eyelid. Shows that he sort of is disconcerted but has a deep attitude. So I'll draw that lid first and draw everything from that. So I'll draw the eyelid, lid, up here, the eye below. Now there are artists out here, and I know a couple of them. Jan Ottebeek is one of them, who exaggerate a lot. Unfortunately, I spent all my life trying to get people to like me, and so when I think of drawing them exaggerated, I'm afraid they don't like me. So I try not to get too nutty about that. Although there's a freedom in doing this, it's a little more exaggerated than I normally do. But we're teaching caricatures, so we'll go from there. His eye, like I said, his pupil of his eye, the iris, is up here about midpoint.
Chad says we love you, Nick.
You don't mean it. You haven't called me once since this whole pandemic thing started.
Manny has joined and is watching.
Now I'm intimidated. All right, and here's the other eyelid. Now look, that curve follows through the eye motion. If you look at it, he does this. So if you follow that.
Yo, Nick, says Manny.
Hey, Manny, what's going on, buddy? His head looks really terrible with that eyes
Social
here.
distancing is Chad's answer.
Social distancing my buns. All right, here we go. That's the basics of my rock. He's my rock. One thing I will tell you, and this is something I have to remind myself, you know, I grew up drawing everything I saw. I wasn't really doing a lot of creative drawing, and so I would draw comic book covers and comic book characters and still life things. And what that's done to me over the years is it's sort of boxed me in, no pun intended, but I'm sort of stuck in trying to draw exactly what I see. Somebody like Manny, and he can attest to this, he draws outside of that. He allows himself to just blow up what he's looking at, picking on some of the greatest things. I can see Manny doing this eyebrow huge and making it a part of it. I tend to stay inside inside the parameters. So here we go. His chin is a little bit of a chin feature to it. And he's got a bit of a thing going on his forehead. So here is Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, as drawn out on my paper. Now, here's where it's going to change a little bit. For some of you who do digital work, this won't be that unusual. For some of you who don't, this will be a different way of looking at how to do this. Now, I will inevitably, I do a lot of drawing by hand. I don't want to lose that. I can do drawing digitally, but to be honest with you, I want to be more fluid with my hand, and so I end up doing that myself. And so my next stage here is to get this into my iPad. And so the program we're going to use today is Procreate. And Procreate is a tremendously powerful, it is the new Photoshop, especially with artists. That's just the way to do drawing on a computer, on an iPad, in a way that it's just so unusual, that it's this easy, and it's free. I haven't quite figured that out yet. Somebody hasn't figured out how to charge us. So here's what I'm going to do. My next step is to open up my camera. Here's my face. And some people can scan it. I don't want to scan it. I want to use my camera. So I'll bring it above it. And what's really fun, if you watch taking pictures.
Steve noticed your Planet of the Apes screensaver.
Oh, you like it? Sorry, I'm a movie nut. It's all over the place. I don't know if you've noticed, those of you who take pictures, some of you probably do this all the time, but I noticed the other day that if I take this picture, if I tilt this iPad to take the picture, see how big that chin got? Can you see it? Mm-hmm. If I tilt it back this way, see how big the forehead gets? You can do some distortion just with your camera. I want this to be really close, so I'm going to shoot it right over the top. All right.
Keep going. I'm so happy I get to wake up watching Nick draw.
Oh, I'm so glad people find that amusing. All right, here we go. We're going into Procreate now. I'm going to create a new canvas. I'm going to do this like some of you who do or don't know it. In your new canvas, you can establish a canvas size, or you can use any one of them in there that they have available. I start with a size that's 12 by 16. That's ridiculously large, but when I do poster work and those kinds of things, I use that size. We print out literally a lot of the studio work that we do. These things will print out as much as 24 by 36. People want them. It's my fault for inviting it to them. Anyway, in Procreate, if you go over here to the tool, you can come over to add, and then I'm going to insert a photo. Oh, I don't have any nude photos on here. That would be really embarrassing.
Freddie Meal, master, very good.
Yeah, I want it to be bigger. Okay, this imported this out of my photo on a separate layer. And the great thing is I can dim this layer down quite a bit. And I'm going to cover this very roughly. By the way, there's a gentleman online, his name is BJ Dell, and he has a lot of great draw along and creative ways of challenging other artists who are using iPads. And he also has a set of brushes out there, which I picked up. They work great for me. I will put a link on the video after we're done to find those. They're really good. They're very, some of them are very pencil sketch like. They're already done. He's already done the stabilization deal inside and made it ready to go. So I'm using a one that's called an inker, a natural inker. I've got my palette all ready to go, the colors that I typically use. So I'm going to go black. Too big, Nick. Do I have a place where I start? No. I start wherever I'm most comfortable. Now you can, in your brushes, you can change the settings. To stabilize. Where are they? If you add too much, it'll smooth your line tremendously. If you don't do enough, you'll get a jagged line when you draw like this. One of the cool things, some of you who use Procreate know this, some of you don't, and I learned this from BJ as well, is if you've got a nice curve, let's just use his head as an example. You can curve and hold your pen still, and it'll give you a solid, complete curve. Some people like those kinds of things. I'm not always into a perfect curved line, but I will do it from time to time. If you're not careful, it'll straighten your line out for you. See, I can move that around. I've got a really nice paper texture on my screen, but unfortunately it resists free flow on the top, and so it will grab every once in a while.
Steve Dorks is watching. We have a question here. That's a nice brush. Which one is it?
In his listing, it's called a natural inker. He has the download. I think I paid $3 for it. And then you download it and import it into your brushes, and they'll show you how to do that. I might do a backup video to show everybody how to do that too. It's really worth it. I mean, if you look at these other brushes, they really do appear to be more sketch-like, much like a pencil.
Steve says, hey, buddy.
Hey, Steve. Glad you could make it. Please don't fall asleep. We're testing later. It's got some really nice pre-done brushes in here. He's got a bold inker, a standard inker. Now the streamline feature, he has the same brush with and without it. The streamline is that, what I was talking about before, that sort of makes your lines more naturally curved and less jagged. But I like the natural inker. I rely on the natural curve of my wrist a lot. And so people that do that, you'll notice them flipping their pages around quite often. Some people aren't as reliant on that. I don't want that eyelid to be very thick at all.
Steve asked, do you use Clip Studio too?
I do. That's my go-to on my PC.
And Steve Doris said, haha, I'll try to stay awake.
Comes that eyebrow.
Which resolution is most recommended from Freddie?
It depends mostly on what your end product is going to be. I run everything at 300. It can always be resed down. I don't store a lot on my iPad. I will export it to a storage like a hard drive. But 300 is my preferred. Actually, I'll tell you, to be honest with you, 200 is probably better. It uses less memory and it gives you a nice finish. Most of the poster work that I do, the bigger drawings, those are at 200 on the 12 by 16. So resolution wise, you just pick a size canvas that you want and leave it at 200 dpi. It's really good.
He talks to himself a lot.
I do. It's my inner dialogue coming out.
I try to answer it a lot.
The reason I like digital so much, I can go back as many times as I want when I mess up and fix whatever I want to fix.
Steve Doris says, I can smell what you're cooking. Nice eyebrow arch.
He knows The Rock too well. My buddy Chad Engel is a big wrestling fan, big, and apparently he was just inducted into a Hall of Fame and he didn't say anything to anybody. I didn't know.
Come on, Chad.
Should have said something to somebody.
Bill Barrett, I hear the Partridge Family awesome. Chad says hello.
I was wondering if somebody would ever notice. Yeah, I put the Partridge Family on there on purpose. I have rather a wide repertoire. I'm going to follow this line down, the one we started on the nose, for the neck. It's a natural curve that really looks good. Now, at this point, and I'll do this a lot, mind you, I'll close this end even though I'll open it up later. But when I get rid of this guy, one of the great things about Procreate, and I learned this from BJ, he's really good, I can add a layer, put it underneath. And if I go to this layer and over here and I give it a reference, all the layers below fill according to that. So I'm going to pull out my flesh tone here and drag it down. Now I'm on the layer below. Hello. This is closed.
Chad says it looks awesome.
Needs to close. Boy, it finds the hole, doesn't it? Just finds it. I'll do cleanup on this after I'm done. I'm not sitting at my normal table. So anyway, here we are. Did I do that on the other layer? Son of a mother. Don't pay attention to what I just did. Pretend like I did this. This is a reference layer. Find out if it's full or not. I'm going to go to the layer below. See, this is the drawing layer. I'm going to go to the layer below, drag this down, and it fills it. If you're drawing live with Procreate, that's a tremendous time saver. But I will tell you, you've got to make sure that your line work is closed so that you can...
Jamie has a question. What tip do you have for a quick turnaround for retail artists?
Quick turnaround?
Yep.
Okay. Honestly, it all depends on you. Quick turnaround, the basics. Isn't that difficult? My problems are I'm very anal retentive, and so I end up doing things to the nth degree. So I'm the wrong person to ask about a quick turnaround. I work with a couple of people who, when they draw very quickly. As far as if you want to do things, if you're not anal retentive, quick turnaround, don't get nutty with your colors. You want to be good and solid with your color work, but you don't want to be too detail oriented. That's me. So if you want to make money in the retail world, when you do your setup, make sure that you have a limited number of color to work with. Caucasian, African American, have the colors ready to go. I use a Prismacolor art sticks, and they work great. Which layer am I on? This layer here. But I will tell you that if you have some people think, and I was one of them, some people think it's a great idea to have a tremendous number of colors available. Do that. When setup time comes, be as portable as you can with your equipment. If you're setting up at a retail space that has a place available for you to set your desk up and that's great. Our setup is I literally use a conductor stand that's been modified. I can tear down and set up my entire drawing arrangement in less than 4 minutes. And that's key, especially when you've got to tear down and go to another gig. If you've got something else going on, make sure that your subjects sit nice at the direction you want them to. Don't let them choose. You choose for them. They've come to you to draw something, so be sure to draw what you want the way they want it. Oh, did you mean digital? for drawing digital retail? Sorry. This is my recommendation, to know Procreate. To know this program, some of the shortcuts are crucial. This shortcut right here is tremendous. It's something that I found out just by watching BJ, and this one saved me a ton of time, because I would sit here literally at an event, and you'd see me, I'd be the guy doing this. And that takes a ton of time. Also, and I was going to show you, since we're going to do this, I'm going to show you some shadowing. I'm going to do it on this layer. I could do it, you cannot draw using this as a reference, and it will stay inside the line. So once you've got this done.
Some people talk way too much at gigs and slows them down. Not Nick.
Shut up.
That was Bob.
Shut up, Bob. I don't like you anymore.
He was complimenting you.
Oh, I mean, that's true. I don't talk a lot. I do steer a lot of money.
That is cool, says Cece.
Okay, so once I've got this layer done, this layer here, and this is, like you say, if you're wanting to know retail, learning to be fast is crucial. And doing all the shortcuts is a big key. It really is. I already made this. I gotta stop thinking for a minute. All right, I'm going to use this layer. I'm going to hurry up because we're getting short on time. I'm going to use this layer, and I'm going to alpha lock it. Alpha means that when I draw on this layer, for those of you that don't know, when I draw on it, if I draw out here, nothing happens. If I go through it, it stays on that particular layer. So I can do this all day long, and I won't be anywhere near it going on the outside of the lines. So I'm going to use a different brush. This one's a little small. BJ's standard inker, the bigger one, works great. And so pick a light source. I don't have the picture reference in front of me, but I normally put all my light sources on the left of the drawing.
Bob's making sure he didn't mean you.
Oh, don't worry about it, Bob. Golly, you can't offend me, buddy. I've had my legs removed, man. It doesn't bother me at all. This is so much darker than I normally do. Maybe it shows up better for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to get too nutty with this. I just wanted to show you guys the... Now, the other great thing about Alpha Lock, and I use this on my Clip Studio, whenever I draw a person, I pick a darker color to do for their outlines. Yeah, leave that alone. So I'm going to go to my outline layer, and I'm going to Alpha Lock it, and then I'll fill it. To some of you, this is old news. To some people, this is brand spanking new. Yeah, I like brand spanking new. All right, I'm going to finish up on the eyes and the lips and go back, and then I'm going to wrap up. Sorry, you guys. I feel like I'm all over the board. I'm not trying to be.
Cece said, "Thanks so much for the Alpha Lock. My kids and I gasped at just used it. I am going to use this for sure."
I have colors that I've made for specific things, like lips and other details. I'm going to go this is the second layer, and this will probably be where I would slow and retail down. But I do this in my retail. I would do the lips on another layer because if I don't like the way they look, I don't think guys look good with really pink lips.
Chad says, "I think you can drag and drop on the line art and it will color the line."
Probably would. Probably a good idea. Thanks, Chad. Maybe you should do a video. Anyway, I'll dilute this down a little bit so his lips aren't so pink. I'm just kidding, Chad.
Just laughing at you. Dave Snyder, I negative masked the background before, but I haven't done the Alpha Lock trick. That's cool.
Of course, my outline of my lips need to be a little on the pinky side too. So I already have one of those ready to go. Have the right layer? I do. Right tool. Ooh, that's not near
Al Lopez. Hi, Nick. This is great stuff. Nanj. Was wondering what Alpha Lock was. Thanks.
Some of this is new. I will tell you, like I said, I'm covering a lot because I have a little bit of time. But for some people who are just doing this for the first time, this stuff is a tremendous revelation. I mean, when I learned about a lot of it, I was excited. Typically, I will tell you that I will do things like shading on a different layer. I will go back through and darken the lines in these areas here.
Do you use Clip Studio on iPad too?
I have not used, you know what? The only reason I don't is I don't want to pay for it. I've already paid for it once on my computer. I don't want to pay a monthly fee. I will tell you that if you asked Lar, he would tell you it's worth it. And I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that at this point, I haven't found a tremendous need for it. I guarantee that if the more I do this, the more that I like it, the more I probably will decide to do that. But Clip Studio hasn't decided to let that go for people to use without paying for it on a monthly level.
Freddie Leal says, to work the line, you recommend always modulate or depend on the artist. David Sawyer, fill layer, what does it do? What's the fill layer? What does it do?
Well, the fill layer enables me, first off, it doesn't, I'm not working, it gives me the opportunity to make changes on my outline layer. And see, like I said, when I'm doing my studio work, I do multiple layers. I'll have a layer for the lips. If there's a mouth that's open, I'll do all the inner work of the mouth on that. My shading, normally I will do on another layer so that I can adjust how dark and how light it is. It's just a way to make sure that all your work is protected. And if you make a mistake, you can go back and fix it. So the last thing I would do on this layer is I would apply a little bit of lightened edge up here. This is ridiculously simple, guys. I don't mean for it to be. I'm sorry. I about locked it. Double lock it again. The lips, I would add shading to that. On the dark side of the moon here.
Have you used the Animate function in Procreate?
I have not. And I listened to Lar the other day. I'm kind of with him on this. The animation is a great tool, but I don't know that I have the time investment to give it. It is certainly a great thing to have, but no, I haven't used it yet. To be honest with you, I'm still learning Procreate and Clip Studio on my computer. When I work on that as well, you would think I would have learned the animation. That's way more powerful, but no, I haven't. Sorry, it's a long answer. I add another layer. This is a.
Where did the music go?
It's still there. It's still there. It's just playing a very mellow song. I'm a huge Tom Richmond fan. A huge Tom Richmond fan. I think I make him uncomfortable. I think he thinks I sleep, outside his bedroom window and watch him at night. But one of the things that he talked about, and I'm doing this very quickly, was adding that 5 o'clock shadow to a drawing. And this is really rough, guys. I apologize. But one of the great things you can do, and I know that Chad has done this on some of his digital work, when you make that layer a multiply layer, sure I can. There it is. Jeez. And you diffuse it. And this was blue, not black, not purple, blue. It adds a little bit of life to your drawing and it gives him that shadow look. I will use that a lot, especially with the people that I deal with that have that 5 o'clock shadow. All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and call the ball on it for now. I hope some of this was helpful. For those of you that are new at this, just remember not to get discouraged as to the ability you have to draw. Your abilities will get better with time. if you think that you can draw, the people that you see draw, if you think they draw very well from the beginning, they don't. There's a natural ability that gives you the desire to grow, and that growing makes you more muscular and more able to do the work you want to do. Talent isn't a thing that you are just given. It's something you develop, and I believe that is God given. But I believe, it's like the joke about the pastor who bought an old beat up farm, and he worked on it for 2 or 3 months, and his neighbor came up to him and said, "Wow, Pastor, the Lord sure did make a beautiful farm." He says, "Yeah, well, he should have been here to help me clean it then." So, it's what we do. It's how we work. It's how we grow. And if you're an artist, you like to draw. So what are we drawing today? No pun intended, or actually there is. First off, you want to have a good space to work in. You want to have a space that inspires you. Even if it's in your room, especially if it's in your room, surround yourself with things that you like to look at. That's important. Things that inspire you, it urges you to draw. Secondly, make sure you warm up a lot when you get ready to draw. Those newcomers, warm up. I know older people, look, when I go to a gig to draw, I warm up. I mean, I know artists that don't, it's okay. But I gotta warm up. I gotta get the flow going. I gotta feel those lines come out of my hands. And lastly, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are the best part of learning. And believe me, I've got a trunk full of mistakes just today. So if you guys think of anything or you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Jamie Alexander has one last question for you. Do you use 100% black when drawing digitally?
Yes and no. I don't use 100% black. Like if I'm doing a fill, absolutely not. If somebody's got a black shirt on, it's not 100% black. It's a very heavy gray, and I use black for shading and those kinds of things. But what you learn very quickly when drawing is black is a great color for accent and definition. Eric talked about contrast in his video. Contrast is important, but when it comes to filling, you don't want to have a guy in a black shirt and you've got lines drawn and no way to show those lines. So I use a darker gray for fill, but when I do outlines, a lot of times I'll use black. Just depends on the situation. All right, you guys, thanks a lot. I hope some of this was helpful. At least it's better than watching, Housewives of Atlanta. Enjoy each other. Stay healthy, and I hope you guys do great. And anybody have any questions, feel free to text me or whatever. Thanks a lot. Thanks for being a part of it.